worldling, sets his mind upon future renewed existence, then that senseless man is struck even still more thoroughly, just like the sheaf of barley struck by the seventh flail. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, just like that sheaf of barley, we are struck by the six sense objects. Why do we say we are struck? Because when the six sense objects impinge on our six sense basis, then feeling arises. Feeling is followed by perception, followed by thoughts, followed by chasing after the object. And so from here you get a lot of what we call fan now. All the mental defilements arise because of this six sense objects striking at our six sense basis. So that's why the Buddha gives us simile of that sheaf of barley being hit and hit again. And then if this ordinary unlearned worldling, he thinks about future rebirth, how he aspires to have a good rebirth in heaven or whatever place, then he is said to be struck even more thoroughly. Why? Because when he thinks of making a wish for the future, then that gives him more anxiety. Just like a lot of people, we not only have remorse over things that are past, we worry about things that have not come yet, worry about the future, we have remorse over the past. So in the same way, this man, he thinks about the future, rebirth and all that, then maybe either he wants to think of going to heaven, or he's afraid that because his karma is no good, he's going to hell, or he's going to ghost realm or whatever, then all that is to him is fun now. Mental disturbance, defilements. And then the Buddha continued. Once in the past, monks, the Devas and Asuras were arrayed for battle. Then Vepachiti, Lord of the Asuras, addressed the Asuras thus: Good sirs, if in this impending battle the Asuras win and the Devas are defeated, bind Sakka Devaraja by his four limbs and neck and bring him to me in the city of the Asuras. And Sakka Devaraja addressed the Tavatimsa Devas: Good sirs, if in this impending battle the Devas win and the Asuras are defeated, bind Vepachiti, Lord of the Asuras, by his four limbs and neck and bring him to me in Sudhamma, the assembly hall of the Devas. In that battle the Devas won and the Asuras were defeated. Then the Tavatimsa Devas bound Vepachiti by his four limbs and neck and brought him to Sakka in Sudhamma, the assembly hall of the Devas. And there Vepachiti, Lord of the Asuras, was bound by his four limbs and neck. When it occurred to Vepachiti, the Devas are righteous, the Asuras are unrighteous or wrong. Now right here I have gone to the city of the Devas. He then saw himself freed from the bonds around his limbs and neck, and he enjoyed himself furnished and endowed with the five cords of divine sensual pleasure. But when it occurred to him, the Asuras are righteous, the Devas are unrighteous. Now I will go to the city of the Asuras. But when it occurred to him, the Asuras are righteous, the Devas are unrighteous. Now I will go to the city of the Asuras. Then he saw himself bound by his four limbs and neck, and he was deprived of the five cords of divine sensual pleasure. So subtle, monks, was the bondage of Vepachiti, but even subtler than that is the bondage of Mara. In conceiving, one is bound by Mara. By not conceiving, one is freed from the evil one. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that this king of the Asuras, he was caught by the Devas, and he was brought to the Deva city. The Devas, they have Sakka Devaraja as their head. So when he was caught and tied up, if he thought that the asuras are right and the devas are wrong, then he feels himself a prisoner. He's very unhappy. He's very. He feels he should not be there, tied up like that. So he has a lot of mental suffering. But on the other hand, the Buddha says, if he had thought that actually the devas are right and the asuras in wrong in starting the fight or something like that, so he has nothing against the devas. So if they caught him, then he would be happy to be caught. Then he would have no thoughts troubling him when he is caught and brought to the devas. In which case, if he concurs with the devas, that the devas are right, then probably they would probably also release him and let him enjoy all the heavenly pleasures. So what the Buddha is trying to say is that our perception, our thinking is very important. If you think in the right way, you don't suffer. If you think in the wrong way, you suffer. So a lot of people, like for example, when dukkha comes, a lot of people, you cannot accept it. For example, if somebody says something nasty to you, and you start thinking, why did he say this to me? I've been so good to him. I've done him so many favors and all that. I don't deserve to be scolded like that and all that. The more you think, the more defilements arise. You become very angry, and perhaps that whole night you cannot sleep. But on the other hand, if somebody says something nasty to you, then you think that must be my karma. Maybe in the past I offended him, I didn't notice. Or in the past life I did something wrong, so now I deserve what I get. And then you have no problem anymore, right? You just forget about the incident. But it's only when you cannot accept it, then all the mental defilements will follow. So the way we look at things is very important, our state of the mind. So the Buddha is saying, so subtle, monks, was the bondage of Vipachiti, but even subtler than that is the bondage of Mara. In conceiving, one is bound by Mara. By not conceiving, one is freed from the evil one. Monks, I am is a conceiving. I am this is a conceiving. I shall be is a conceiving. I shall not be is a conceiving. I shall consist of form is a conceiving. I shall be formless is a conceiving. I shall be percipient is a conceiving. I shall be non-percipient is a conceiving. I shall be neither percipient nor non-percipient is a conceiving. Conceiving is a disease. Conceiving is a tumor. Conceiving is a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. You will dwell with a mind devoid of conceiving. Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, the tendency of the mind to conceive. Conceive is like to have a concept. Quan Nian, in Chinese called Quan Nian, that I exist. Because, for example, when happiness arises, for example, you see something beautiful, or you hear very nice sounds, or you taste very good food, then you like to think, I am enjoying myself. I am enjoying myself. Instead of just thinking there is just pleasurable feeling arising. But because we have this perception that I enjoy, so the Buddha calls this the bondage of Mara. If you have this concept, I, then one day you enjoy, I am happy. Another day, I will suffer. So happiness and suffering follows one after another, because this world is impermanent. When you enjoy anything, when it goes away, then you will have suffering. So this I am, the Buddha says, is a trap of Mara. and if you keep on conceiving, you will suffer. So this concept that I am or I exist, we should be very careful. If you don't have that concept I, then you don't suffer. Monks, I am is a perturbation. I am this is a perturbation, is a disturbance of the mind, and all these other views. It's a disturbance of the mind, it's a dart, it's a tumor. Monks, I am is a palpitation, something that will shake you. I am this is a palpitation. I shall be is a palpitation. Palpitation is a disease, it's a tumor, it's a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves. We will dwell with a mind devoid of palpitation. Monks, I am is a proliferation. Proliferation is papancha, proliferation of thoughts. I am this is a proliferation. I shall be is a proliferation. Proliferation is a disease. Proliferation is a tumor, is a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. Monks, I am is an involvement with conceit. I am this is an involvement with conceit. I shall be is an involvement with conceit. I shall whatever, etc. Involvement with conceit is a disease. Involvement with conceit is a tumor. Involvement with conceit is a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. You will dwell with the mind in which conceit has been struck down. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So in this last part, the Buddha says, just like the Vipachiti, when he was caught, depending on his state of mind, if his state of mind is not skillful, then he will suffer. If his state of mind, he has skillful thoughts, wholesome thoughts, then he will not have so much mental suffering. So in the same way, if we have this conceiving that I am, I exist, then a lot of suffering will follow. And this conceiving, the Buddha says, is a perturbation. It's something that disturbs your mind. It's a palpitation, something that will shake your mind. It's a proliferation. It's a multiplication of thoughts. It's an involvement with conceit. Okay. So there we have finished the Salayatana Samyutta. Now we come to the second chapter of this book, this fourth book, chapter 36, called Vedana Samyutta. Vedana is feeling. The first sutta I'll read is 36.3. Monks, there are these three feelings. What three? Pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Now there's neutral feeling. The underlying tendency to lust should be abandoned in regard to pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to aversion should be abandoned in regard to painful feeling. The underlying tendency to ignorance should be abandoned in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Stop here for a moment. So here, generally, when we have a pleasant feeling, there is a tendency to lust for it, to crave for it. And then when there is a painful feeling, there's a tendency to feel aversion for it, to be repelled by it. And then when there is neither painful nor pleasant feeling, neutral feeling, equanimous feeling, then we tend to be ignorant of it. We don't notice it. When a monk has abandoned the underlying tendency to lust in regard to pleasant feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion in regard to painful feeling, and the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling, then he is called a monk without underlying tendencies, one who sees rightly. He has cut off craving, severed the fetters, and by completely breaking through conceit, he has made an end to suffering. So the Buddha says a monk should get rid of the tendency to lust for pleasant feeling, the tendency to aversion towards painful feeling, and the tendency to ignorance in regard to neutral feeling.